If you would like to support the podcast and get some extra content while you're there, head on over to patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast and sign up. From the rewatch to the Q&A, we will have loads of content every week. So sign up, patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast. And now, here's the podcast. Welcome everybody. It's episode 350 of the Severe MMA podcast. My name is Sean Sheehan, joined today by the Serena Williams of Irish MMA media, Graeme MacDonald, as we talk about a massive night in the world of mixed martial arts at UFC 271 as the middleweight title, the worst division in the UFC. But, two pretty good fighters, went down. Well,
the worst men's division anyway.
The worst men's division anyway, yeah. Arguably. They had a fight, and we'll talk about that. There was a pretty interesting heavyweight fight, which I called absolutely correctly. There's the UFC card next week with an Irishman headlining. There, allegedly. There is a Bellator card next week, which is terrible, and we will talk all about that. Before we get into all of that, though, it's exciting news from our friends at Manscaped, because as you probably know by now, they've launched the massive, brilliant Performance Package 4.0. You heard that right, 4.0. The leaders in male grooming have done it again to make grooming and take grooming to the next level. Join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with the new Performance Package 4.0. You can get 20% off plus free shipping with the code SEVEREMMA. And myself and Graeme have been using this since even before Christmas, so it's absolutely fantastic. But now is the time to get yours. It has arrived, and man, was it worth the wait. Inside the package, you'll find their Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, weed whacker, ear and nose hair trimmer. I haven't struggled to say that in a while, but I'm struggling today. The Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant, the Crop Reviver Toner, the Performance Boxer Brief, and a new travel bag as well to hold all your goodies. First, that 4.0 lawnmower. The trimmer is insane. Dare I say, the greatest bald trimmer ever? Yes, I said it. That's it. Their 4th generation trimmer features a cutting edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin safe technology. The Lawnmower 4.0 has a 7,000 RPM motor with a multi-function on and off switch, and it has the ability to turn the 4000K LED spotlight on and off when needed for more precise shave. Oh, and it's waterproof as well. Also is the Weed Whacker to chop the worst weeds up your nose and ear. It's waterproof, 9,000 RPM motor power, 360 degree rotary dual blade system. Also has the proprietary skin safe technology, which helps to prevent even nicks, snags and tugs in those delicate holes. Seal the deal with the Manscaped liquid formulations. These are absolutely brilliant. Anyone who's used these knows. Their Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant before leaving the house, and the Crop Toner for a mid-game ball check. Trust me when I say, fellas, your balls will thank you. Manscaped even threw in the 2 free gifts that with the Performance Package 4.0, the Manscaped Boxers and the Shed Travel Bag. Bring your comfort and boxers to the next level. So got 20% off and free shipping with that code SEVEREMMA at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code SEVEREMMA at manscaped.com. Your balls have been through enough this past year. Treat them with the best tools for the job at Manscaped. And while we're here as well, Graeme, before we get into the podcast, this podcast it's 350, obviously, which is a bit of a milestone, but it'll also see us pass 1 million listeners on SoundCloud. Now, SoundCloud is our main place, kind of where we put in the website and we tweet around and stuff like that. On all platforms, it's probably closer to maybe, 4 million maybe, or something like that. It's hard to keep track of all of these, but I think that's a pretty good feat to get the 1 million there alone. I know a lot of people listen to it there across the world. Actually, we've had we've never had many listeners in Germany, but for some reason our listenership for the last 6 years has been doubled in the last month in Germany. So did we
talk up some German fighter or something? Did we say nice things? I can't remember.
I don't know, I can't remember either, but our listenership, I suppose, in the US has massively jumped over the last few years. We actually have more people listen to us in America now than we have in Ireland, which is a bit crazy, but we really appreciate it all. Everyone that has tuned in and listened, it's kind of cool to see that million mark being jumped over. and we really appreciate the support and the listens and every, it helps us when we're able to go out and tell maybe advertisers and stuff, oh, we've got 1 million people listening to us. That makes a difference. So we appreciate it, everyone who tunes in every week. And supports us, and long may it continue. Now we've been doing it now. It was our 6th year anniversary there a couple of weeks ago, and hopefully we'll be here for another few years doing it and pounding the airwaves every Sunday with all our friends here listening in. So we there's a great community here as well going on for 6 years. It's not the sort of one that pops up overnight or anything like that. We've built it, and everyone listening has built it as well, and there's a great listenership and a great friendship as well. A lot of people, especially lads over in the DM group and on Patreon and things as well. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm looking forward to meeting somebody above it at Bellator as well. You'll be there too, Graeme, won't you? At Bellator, you're coming.
Yeah, I'll be at Bellator with you. So if you want to come up and meet and take photos with Sean, that's great. Stay away from me. I'm only joking. No, thanks to everybody for listening. Obviously, over the years, we've had some very loyal listeners who've been there the whole way. In the SoundCloud that you can actually see how many episodes people have listened to, and the top listeners anyway, and there's some people who've listened to every episode, and we really appreciate the support on Patreon as well, and everybody that's given us a 5-star review or shared it or liked it or recommended it to somebody else. We really appreciate it, because obviously we want to keep growing, and the more the merrier listening to the podcast, obviously.
Indeed, 100%. So fair play to you. Thanks very much. We'll stop there at the self-flagellation and get into the old game. Also, we lost like 20% of our patrons in like the last one, so and I don't know how, it's some clerical thing or something, so we don't know how to get them back. So
they're like pending or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so strange. Weird. It's fucked up. But so we've lost like loads of money. If you fancy signing up, I just bought a new computer. Hopefully everything will be working much better the next couple of weeks when it comes. So if you fancy signing up and helping us out, keep the lights on, patreon.com/Severe MMA podcast. We just have like the 350 episodes here, and I think it's like 1,010 episodes now or something on Patreon. So that's not bad at all. And that for a $5, not bad at all. So fair play to y'all. God bless y'all. Right, let's talk about UFC 271. And I was thinking about how you kind of maybe wrap up this card and describe it in totality, because there was some really good finishes, really exciting fights, and then there was some kind of bland decisions and some kind of predictable fights. And I think that word predictable that I hit on, even though most of my bets didn't come true, we won't get into that here, but I feel like it was a little bit predictable in certain ways. Now, I wouldn't say maybe the way Moicano got the finish, the way Cannonier got the finish was predictable per se, and we will get into both of those. But I feel like the main event was a little bit predictable in kind of how it went. We all know the kind of Tuivasa Lewis fight, and it was still good, but it was predictable. But
I think so. We did the live pre-fight stream with a few of the lads before the fight, and kind of everybody pretty much agreed that Robert Whittaker would have to try and mix in takedowns and push him against the cage and make it awkward and stuff like that, and that even if he did that, it will be probably a difficult fight for him to win. I think everybody pretty much was picking Adesanya, but Robert Whittaker did put up a good fight. He had his moments, but for me, I saw the scorecards. A lot of scorecards on Twitter, even yours 48-47. I had it 49-46, but these were really close rounds, and I think it was it played out. Robert Whittaker implemented a good game plan that we discussed on that pre-fight show, but it just wasn't enough, because at the end of the day, I think Adesanya is just a better fighter.
Yeah, like I tweeted as well just before the fight. Robert Whittaker needs to do. I don't think taking Israel down against the cage is going to work. I think he needs like blast doubles or takedowns in the middle of the cage. I think he needs to be negative on the outside with his striking and just try to pick off little bits of shots and do it, basically for 5 rounds, as we talked about in the pre-show as well. I think a lot of people maybe agreed. I maybe agreed when I said that in the pre-show. I don't think a lot of analysts outside of that were kind of saying that, but I feel like I got it right, and he did exactly that, and it gave him the best chance of winning. And it wasn't enough, It was one of those where you see someone coming out there and they give their absolute best, I think, in terms of tactics. Maybe they didn't give...
Game planning was great. Yeah. Implementing the game plan was great. Maybe bar round one. But, it just wasn't enough, because Adesanya is just... I think he's just that much better. And he probably, he's probably knew that Whittaker was going to try and bring this game, was prepared for it. And, you know, Whittaker was trying to follow the blueprint of Adesanya's loss at light heavyweight, but he just wasn't able to keep Adesanya down when he got him down, and he wasn't able to get him down in the middle of the cage. Adesanya did a great job, obviously, of getting up against the defense and getting back up. So, I think the game plan was really good from Robert Whittaker, and it was really well implemented for most of the fight. But yeah, as we said, it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I think the problem is, like, it's funny having Bisping do commentary on this fight, and I thought he was generally good, and I thought the commentary wasn't bad throughout it, because Bisping kept talking over Daniel Cormier, which made it fantastic. But Bisping is probably the one person you wouldn't want to fight Adesanya if you had Robert Whittaker's skill set, because Bisping is so brave and he's going to come forward and he's going to take, 100 shots to land what he wants to do. Robert Whittaker couldn't do that last night. Bisping kept saying, why is he only throwing the left? Why is he only throwing the left? Because I did a rewatch on Friday, and if you look at it, every time he threw the right hand, Adesanya was just snapping back his head and countering with like a left or a right or both, and just hurting him every time. That's how he knocked him out, basically, in the first fight. So Robert Whittaker knew he couldn't do that, and if he did that, it would just lead to bad things happening. It would just lead to him getting finished. Look what happened at the end of the first round. He got knocked down because he did that in certain ways, or he was, he was getting, he was getting more kind of inclined to do it. And then in the second round, he actually was more inclined to do it in the start as well, but then he kind of changed it around and it worked a little bit well for him. I think it actually shocked Adesanya a little bit. But I'll go through the rounds in a second. But I think overall, when you look at it from Robert Whittaker's point of view, it must be very, very hard to do exactly what you plan to do. Stay on the outside against Izzy, not really take that many shots of note apart from that one knockdown, get takedowns over and over and over again, and still lose the fight. That must be so disheartening, in the middle of the fight, because it's easy for us to say, and I think it's a fair criticism of Robert Whittaker's game last night that he wasn't relentless enough in terms of the things he was doing the right way. And that's also an easy thing to say, because you have to set takedowns up and you have to set his attacks up. So he couldn't be relentless. There was so many integers which decided Robert Whittaker's game plan that actually couldn't be adjusted, I think, to make it, to make it better. But the problem, I think a major problem for Whittaker was he was having success in every area, but in every area it wasn't enough. He hit him with the left hand over the top maybe 4 or 5 times around, but he was getting massacred with leg kicks. Maybe not massacred, but he was getting hit with hard leg kicks, which are harder than his left hand. He was getting hit with a few jabs per round, which were harder than his jabs coming in as well, even. And when he got the takedowns, he couldn't hold any of them down. So, we always say, be relentless with your takedowns in terms of, if you miss one, go for another one. If you miss one, go for another one. If you get one and he gets up, go for another one. I think Robert Whittaker did that, but every time, as I said, Adesanya got back up, and it was almost as if his success was disheartening. Because when, you can talk about ways you're going to fight, right? And if they don't work, then you can maybe become disheartened, or look at the end of the fight, you'll say, well, look, I tried my best. My game plan wasn't good enough. His game plan was good enough. His game plan executed exactly what he tried, and it still didn't work. How can you not get disheartened when that happens if you're Robert Whittaker?
Well, I think for he actually didn't get disheartened because he actually seemed to think, or thought, he was winning the fight. He thought he'd won the fight by the end, he said in the post-fight interview, in his reaction afterwards. And even the last 20 seconds of the fight, where he kind of had Adesanya up against the cage and pushing for a takedown or just a clinch, and he could have, if he thought he was behind, he probably would have broke away and tried to land a shot, but he didn't, and he seemed surprised that he didn't win the fight. I don't really see that, but he seemed to think that he was. Yeah, when
I say disheartened, maybe I mean disheartened in terms of bringing it to that extra step. If, let's say, Habib in that situation, he gets Adesanya down and he gets up, and gets Adesanya down, he gets up, he would keep going for it and hold him down. He would never keep training it. Yeah, I think Daniel Cormier actually made a good point in the commentary, where Bisping was kind of saying, he needs to kind of collect his breath after that kind of high expenditure of energy. But Daniel Cormier said, if you're going to beat somebody like Adesanya, you got to take this away from him. You got to be 100% for the round. If you can't, you're not going to beat him. And it's in different ways as well, though, because I think if he did go, and I said I compare to what he should do to Khabib there, I don't think that's correct in terms of that. But when he got the takedown, he needed to secure that. Like, that was life or death for him. That was when you win the fight. And he wasn't able to do that. That's why I think he got a little bit disheartened in those terms, because he knew every time he took him down that Adesanya was going to get back up. So as Cormier kind of said, it was just an expansion of energy, when he did that. And that's just such a disheartening thing. But I actually think, towards the end, I know exactly what you mean about the end there. It was one of those ones though where his game plan was executed so well that Adesanya actually didn't land that much, but Whittaker landed even less. And that was the big problem for him. And we saw, look, the judging, we'll get into the judging. They're in Texas now. Let's remember that before we talk about anything. But it could have been, like, if I was Robert Whittaker at the end of that fight too, I probably, seen the cards earlier in the night, thinking I could have got a card, thinking I could have won that. And
if that was the old rules, like, maybe with the takedowns, he would have got the nod, like, years ago.
Yeah, and Texas are kind of half working with the old rules, but I think even then it'd be a stretch to give it to him. But yeah, I look to run through the fight, I suppose, quickly. In round one, there was a lot of leg kicks from Israel Adesanya. He knocked down Robert Whittaker with a nice straight left with maybe 30 seconds-ish or a minute left in the round, and then he kind of calmed down the crowd, said, like, hold on, wait up. Robert Whittaker was kind of circling well, but not doing too much. And Izzy, as I said in the commentary as well, the Ulberg fight earlier in the night, he will just tap you and tap you and tap you from the outside if you give him that opportunity, and that's exactly what Whittaker did. In the second round, Robert Whittaker was coming out and he was going forward more. He landed 4 or 5 of those kind of long, leaping jabs inside, as I talked about earlier on. He got a takedown as well, but Izzy got up. Izzy was landing the leg kicks as well. Very, very close. I gave that one to Whittaker. I know you didn't. I think it was 50-50 between people who did and didn't give it either way. The third, there was a late head kick from Adesanya, and I thought that was the best shot of the round, to be honest. And I thought it hurt Robert Whittaker a little bit. Whittaker did get a takedown in the third, but Izzy got up quickly. Very, very close round again. Absolutely nothing in it. I gave it to Adesanya. Very little from Robert Whittaker, I thought, in the fourth. I thought this was another kind of clearish round from Whittaker, or for Adesanya, sorry, even though 2 judges did give it to him, did give it to Whittaker. Izzy landed more, I thought. Robert's takedown, he took the back at one stage, so maybe that was enough for the judges in the weird Texas system. And in the fourth, Whittaker got a takedown.
Maybe was it the third or the fourth where Adesanya kind of acknowledged a punch on the break?
Yeah, that was the fifth, I think. Yeah, he landed some good shots, and I think most people gave Whittaker the fifth. So, like, the thing about it was, right, I gave him the second, and no judge gave him the second. One judge, and I'm talking about Whittaker here, so I gave him the second. One judge gave him the third. 2 judges gave him the fourth, and 2 judges gave him the fifth. So it's not beyond the realms of possibility whatsoever that Robert Whittaker could have won that fight. It was a very close fight. It was like a little bit like last week, and I did a video over in Sherdog, and we talked about it here in the podcast, the Hermanson Strickland fight. It was a fight that we all kind of saw one lad was winning, but when you look at it from a judge's point of view, or you break it down maybe frame by frame or punch by punch, there's actually,
where's the impact strikes?
There's nothing in it. When there are very few impact strikes, it's very hard to decipher who won a round. Like the first round, easy to decipher who won that round because Robert Whittaker got put in his arse with a straight left. Very easy to decipher who won that. And the rest of the rounds just weren't. So there was 4 rounds that could have gone either way. Now, I think the judges got it right, and I think they gave it to the right person. But it was a closer fight, and that's how Robert Whittaker designed it. But that's a very, very tough fight to win against Israel Adesanya. One thing I want to say as well about Adesanya, maybe, I spoke last week on the preview show and talked about how Adesanya is happy to have a boring fight. And this wasn't necessarily boring. It was in certain ways. Like, this is the one where you're watching live and it's maybe not boring because you're looking for things to happen, but watching it back, it'd just be a snooze fest. Like, do you think Adesanya needs to up it a little bit? Like, to be this superstar that he keeps claiming he is and everyone keeps claiming he is, do the fights need to kind of go with that? Does he need to be more exciting? And like the thing about it is, right, and I'll preface this by saying Robert Whittaker is probably the only guy in that middleweight division at the moment who can lay a glove on him. I don't think anyone else is touching Adesanya, but does he need to be more exciting a bit?
Well, yeah, he's kind of talked about it himself, about performing and stuff like that. But yeah, I think probably this fight is a case of he thinks Robert Whittaker is the biggest challenge in the division to him, and he's like, I can win this quite comfortably if I fight this style. I could get caught up in something if I try to be more aggressive or more like highlight reelish. Then yeah, I think that might have played into Robert Whittaker's hands. It would have been a bad idea if he's going in there against, you know, a fresh opponent in the middleweight division that isn't on the level of Whittaker. Then I'd expect him to kind of go back to, you know, having a bit more flair and things like that in the fight. But I think it's just a matter of circumstance. Against Vettori, he was coming back from his first loss, so he obviously wants to win that and you know, not take a chance there. And then Whittaker, as I said, is probably, if not in Adesanya's head, if not his biggest opponent in the division, then one of them. So I think we probably will, depending on if the opponents aren't the level of Robert Whittaker. I'd expect us to see more flair and more outlandishness from Israel.
Yeah, I kind of have this ongoing joke going about the middleweight division being terrible, and it's a joke in one way, but also it's true, very true in another way. Like, this division isn't great. If you look down through it, I tweeted during the week like that, after Robert Whittaker, what is there? Now, okay, we'll get to Jared Cannonier next against Derek Brunson, but I don't think
Sean Strickland.
No, I don't think any of them are laying a glove on Adesanya in any way. Now, they'll bring different challenges to Robert Whittaker and to each other as well, but I just find it very, very hard to see Adesanya being challenged. And I know, you know, he's a little bit older, I suppose, and he is, you know, he's on about going back to light heavyweight and things like that as well, and he's getting more money now, and then we know that the challenges that brings with fighters and all different sorts of sports people. So I don't know, I just find it very hard to see Adesanya losing in the next while, and I taught myself how to say that they're champions. But what do you think?
Yeah, if he is to move up to light heavyweight, I'd like to see him vacate the middleweight belt and bulk up and not have to worry about getting back down to middleweight.
Not big enough.
Yeah, because, you know, obviously maybe the skill level isn't his skill level is higher than nearly all the guys in the light heavyweight division, but these are like big guys. Like Robert Whittaker obviously has fought at welterweight before, so, you know, it's a different kettle of fish than somebody like Jan, or, you know, even, you know, I don't know. I just think Adesanya he should stay at middleweight or he should stay at light heavyweight. Bouncing between both, I think, is a bad idea.
I would tend to agree with that. Yeah, we saw the same with Holloway. I think that time when he moved up to lightweight, Poirier is a very good fighter, but it was the size, I think, that killed him more than anything else. But yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Let's talk, I suppose, about Jared Cannonier a little bit. So, and that fight with Derek Brunson, he looks like he's going to be the next challenger. I think Dana White even confirmed it at the post-fight press conference. Not a great start, though, for Cannonier in this fight at all. Brunson got a knockdown late after a few takedowns in the first round. I thought he was landing harder on the feet anyway, even though it went back to old Brunson. You know, I was giving Brunson the build-up that he's becoming a more technical, you know, more of a sweet striker, and then he just completely reversed in this one. And something happened to Brunson in the second round. Now, Cannonier landed a very good elbow, and that hurt him at the very start. And then there was, you know, 3 minutes of Brunson just looking hurt, and I don't know,
but looking so tired as well. I don't know how we don't see guys hurt for like 3 minutes usually. No. So I don't know. It looked like he was exhausted, or
it looked to me like he broke
adrenaline
collarbone
or something. I don't know.
It was weird. I've never seen anything like it. And some people saying, "Oh, Brunson gets tired." Yeah, but Brunson gets tired and he gets a bit sloppy and
you don't fall off a cliff like that.
Yeah, he was just kind of standing there. He looked stiff more than tired at all. Everyone's going to look tired 7 or 8 minutes into a very, very, you know, important fight like this. But I think something happened. I think he must have, I don't know, did he break a leg or break a fucking, something happened that I'm convinced that something happened. I haven't listened to the press conference.
Maybe a really bad weight cut or something. I don't know. It was just very strange.
It was very odd, because we see people getting tired all the time. We see people like getting hurt with shots or
it's usually a bit gradual though. It's not like all of a sudden you're just banjaxed.
No, and even with the fights recently, you know, the Chikadze fight where, you know, he kind of got up from a takedown, he wasn't the same after it. you can kind of see it. You go, as you said, a gradual kind of, oh no, I'm falling off a cliff. Oh no, I'm getting tired, and they kind of panic a little bit. I don't know. He wasn't panicking. It was like he knew what was wrong with him, and no one else knew. So I don't know. It was just very not to take that away from Cannonier, because maybe it was that shot, maybe it was concussion. Like that's a very, very logical thing for it to be, I suppose. In
if he was concussed in a training camp, comes into the fight, takes a decent shot and can't recover, that could be it as well. Or
even if the Cannonier shot just concussed him and he was on wobbly legs for the whole thing. It's just very odd. I don't think I've seen anything like that before. It was very bizarre altogether. But having said that, Cannonier did the job. He was landing some big shots on the feet. Brunson got badly hurt and in a vicious elbow to finish it. Kerry Hatley, the referee, was a little bit slow in, but I think people were maybe a little bit too critical of him. He gave Brunson a chance, and okay, there was a couple of elbows too much, no doubt about it, but sometimes in this game you have to get finished, and that's exactly what Derek Brunson did here, unfortunately for him. But Jared Cannonier for Israel Adesanya, after watching that first round, I don't think as much.
If you want Israel to get back to his flair game, then this is a nice matchup for him.
Yeah, because Cannonier as well is the type of guy who, he's not a bad technical striker, and he has a bit of power, and he will come at you with boxing.
He'll back himself, but that's a bad idea.
He will, and that's the worst thing you could do against Adesanya. So yeah, I feel like that's not going to be a great all night at the office for Jared Cannonier. But you never know. He has power. Adesanya does take a shot at times. He likes to talk about himself as this defensive dynamo, and he is that for large periods.
But it's MMA, you're going to take shots.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. But yeah, it's a fight I'll look forward to and I'll watch. But I think if the MMA community is picking that one, you're probably getting 99% picking Israel Adesanya in that one. So it's not the marquee matchup we're looking forward to, like in some other divisions. If you're looking towards, Yan versus Sterling, or maybe, whoever it might be, Gaethje versus Oliveira, there's some standout matchups, or even like Makhachev coming up to get the title or something like that. It feels like the next fight at middleweight isn't a massive fight that we're all looking forward to, and there's nothing down the line like Darren Till or Uriah Hall, or none of these lads are standing out. Maybe Strickland is the guy that'll stand out and say wacky things and build up a fight, but I don't know. I'm just very down on middleweight at the moment. Like, what middleweight needs is it needs a Shimaev or something. I know he's fought at middleweight, but it needs someone like that to rise and come up through it and devastate everyone and come in at like 15-0 to be challenging Adesanya. But we'll see if that happens.
Or if Usman gets a little bored at welterweight, that could be a very interesting matchup. This
Usman Adesanya thing, where one week they said Usman says he'll fight him, and then the next week he says he won't, and Adesanya says he won't fight him, and I think it's bizarre. And Usman and Habib as well refusing to fight each other. It's like, come on, for fuck's sake. They're like,
if Adesanya has this new big contract and Dana says, here, you're fighting this guy, he's like, can he say no?
Probably, I don't know. Maybe Connor's his manager. Get on them there and ask him. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels like these lads want to avoid these big fights these days. I don't know, and maybe it's because they're not getting paid enough.
Moving up a bit, as you say, you're not getting paid anymore. You're probably getting the same wage. You're moving up 15, 20 pounds. It's a risk. Like, we've seen it with Max Holloway, we've seen it with Adesanya. It's not easy to move up weight and win against like a top contender or a champion. So yeah, it's definitely a risk, and as fans, we definitely want to see it and all that, but it isn't as easy as maybe people think to move up.
Yeah, indeed. But I think Usman is a pretty big welterweight. Like, he looks, he looks pretty cut on the scale. He's a broken hand now as well. So maybe
if he was to leave the welterweight division behind and go to middleweight, like I said earlier, I don't like too much of this jumping between weights. Back and forth. But yeah, like in the actual middleweight division right now, yeah, there isn't much there at all. Like, we're looking at Sean Strickland, and if Sean Strickland goes in there against Adesanya, like, I don't think his kind of sparring style is gonna fly there.
I think if Colby Covington moved to middleweight, he'd probably be champion. Like, I'd pick Colby to beat Adesanya. I think he could take him down.
So.
No, do you not think so? This is coming from the lad who once said Cowboy would beat Colby, so why not?
Look out for that in an upcoming video.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Indeed. I was looking for it last night, actually. I played a bit of it, but yeah, it wasn't there. But yeah, anyway, come here, before we get into the rest of it, what was your take on Joe Rogan not being on commentary last night? You know, they said he had a previous engagement or something like that. Didn't Dana White said, I actually just looked at Aaron Bronstetter tweeted out that said Rogan decided not to put himself on the card. Now, we're not going to get into a big political debate or a Joe Rogan debate. This is an MMA podcast, but what was your thoughts on it as someone who's followed Joe Rogan's career throughout and everything like that on him not being in the commentary last night?
Yeah, if it was his own decision, it's hard to know what to believe, but if it was his own decision and he just wants to kind of, sit it out for a while, let the storm kind of blow over, hopefully from his perspective, maybe that is the best thing to do, to not kind of have this spotlight on him when it should be on the fighters. Maybe that's what he's thinking, but it's really hard to know if we can believe what Dana says, or you know what I mean. His history of telling the truth isn't really there.
Yeah. Look, the thing about it is, it was a very weird week, obviously, for Joe Rogan. If you're living under a rock, they had, everyone's been on him for all the COVID misinformation and all of this, and for having, these experts.
Dangerous conversations.
On his podcast and things like that. And then it turned to like an old video of him saying the N-word over and over and over again.
Well, I think, though, in fairness, the little clips are, there's no context to them.
Yeah, obviously, but he said that himself, and everyone has said that. But, like, you're not allowed to say that word in context.
Yeah, but he was saying, this person said... Yes. There was a lot of that, in fairness, just to clarify that.
Indeed, yeah, but it
was ill-advised, but it wasn't what a lot of people are making it out to be, in my opinion.
Yeah, as someone who has watched the Rogan podcast at the times when he was doing that, I haven't watched. I watched the odd one every now and then if Quentin Tarantino or something is on, but he used to say it all the time, just because he was like, I don't think we should not be able to say any words, and then he kind of wised up to that. Maybe
he's like, we're giving it power and stuff like that. But then he
definitely
evolved,
3 or 4 years ago.
You can't. He came out and said here, like, I shouldn't have said it. It looks bad. I didn't mean it like that, but I know now. People are allowed, evolve over 12 years.
Yeah, but I suppose that's a different debate. Whatever your side on it is, and I think, look, the weird thing as well is people like tweeting out pictures of Joe Rogan. I support Joe after. It's like, lads, maybe hold back on that after this video gets fucking released. Like, people are so weird. It's like they saw this and they jumped on an opportunity. It's like, okay, Rogan, I don't think anyone is saying put Rogan away forever and cancel him or anything like that. Okay, maybe some people are, absolutely, but
loads of people are, yeah. They're getting letters with fake doctors and stuff to try and cancel them.
Sure, look, these things happen in MMA. But I think there was probably the right decision to pull Rogan and in the middle of this, because as you say, like, they have Black History Month up on the screen throughout this whole thing, and then you have a guy like embroiled in this for the last month, talking about it on the screen while it's happening. I just don't think you can have that. And look, I'm sure it's not a UFC decision, because they would not give a single shit. Dana White either would not give a single shit. I think that has been par for the course for them. They'd probably like this more than fucking hate it, I would say. But
I think, Disney, if we look at a football example of Kurt Zuma and the cat, I think playing him being publicly kind of put out there recently after the incident made it way worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it was probably a good decision for Rogan not to be there, even if you support him or don't support him. Yeah,
100%. The weird thing about it was, though, like, the lack of transparency. I think maybe Dana White saying Rogan decided not to come himself was maybe the most transparent thing, in that, like, someone probably said, well, Joe, do you want to commentate this week? It was probably one of those, more than Rogan ringing him up and going, here, lads, I'm not commentating this week. So it was definitely a dicey situation there, as some people would say. But you can't blame him. And I'm sure Joe Rogan Joe Rogan will be back. But when I say you can't blame if it was Disney or ESPN or whatever and they wanted Joe Rogan not to commentate on it. I definitely don't think you can blame him. And if it was even Joe Rogan himself wanting this to kind of blow over or whatever and people to get onto the next storm, you probably can't blame that either. So, you know, the commentary didn't suffer. I thought the commentary was good. I thought Bisping was very good. And as I said earlier, he talked over Cormier a lot, so it made the commentary even better. The weird thing about Cormier, right, and not to go into a Cormier spiel here or anything, I don't know if you saw it during the week, Ariel put up a clip of him and Cormier, and Ariel mentioned the Korean Zombies t-shirt. And then Daniel Cormier was like, I can't believe you keep bringing up these obscure things that nobody has heard about. Like, who the fuck hasn't
heard about? That was
like,
Dana was wearing them for like weeks when WEC wasn't even, merged with the UFC, and they were like one of the most
bizarre.
popular t-shirts in
even if you weren't watching then, the Green Zombie has like worn that t-shirt and fans have worn that t-shirt for years after. And like Mark Coleman came on last night, he was in the corner, one of the lads here, and Cormier was calling him Coley and so I was like, you've never heard of Mark Coleman, what are you talking about? Like, it just feels like sometimes that, and we all have it in different ways, and when we're doing podcasts and things, and nobody can be perfect all the time. But if you're in that role and you don't know anything about MMA really outside of maybe, a few takedowns and stuff like that, you sound so bad. And that's why he kept calling Tai Tuivasa Big Bam. His name is Bam Bam, like. I thought he misspoke once. He kept calling him Big Bam. It's like, this is the core main event, like, and you can't get the guy's nickname right. Oh my God.
No, it's bad. I thought it was funny with Bisping was a couple of times he was like, after seeing that interview, obviously with Dominic Cruz and stuff, or the sit down with Dominic Cruz, DC and Bisping. And Bisping was saying in the commentary, well, I was watching this guy's fight against somebody this morning, kind of talking over Cormier.
Brilliant.
You wouldn't know, you don't even watch the fights.
He was like, I did my research at one stage. I was like, oh yeah, perfect. But let's talk.
Just having little jabs at Daniel.
Yeah, love it. Let's talk about Big Bam, Tai Tuivasa. We're going to have to just call him Big Bam from now on, I think.
We got to talk about your tweet, your promise.
Go on. Oh yeah. Well, okay. I promised if Tai Tuivasa won this fight, I will do a shoey on the next live stream. I don't know. Maybe it should be the next pay-per-view live stream. If not, I'll do it next Thursday. I will absolutely 100% do it.
So send your smelliest shoes to Sean. We'll pick the smelliest shoe we can find.
Pick the smelliest shoe. I have one pair of shoes I wear all the time. They're Under Armour ones, but there's holes in them. I'm going to have to get like a shoe. Like I have shoes that have been there for fucking years. I'm like, I will not get a new shoe in it. I promise.
Like a formal shoe.
Yeah, that to be the best one to do it out of, I think. So I'll get one of them and I'll do it next. The next time, maybe the stars. I'll let everyone know anyway. But
we can do a time comparison. Tai Tuivasa Shoey versus the Sean Sheehan Shoey.
Oh, I would down it Shoey way quicker than Tai Tuivasa, guaranteed. Can't wait.
You have to tune in.
We'll have to tune in for it. We'll have the Shoey coming too, and the Sheehan Shoey. # Sheehan Shoey. It's coming soon. But Tai Tuivasa walked out to Girls Just Want to Have Fun, which used to be my party piece. I used to stand up. There's a picture of me on Facebook up singing Girls Just Want to Have Fun at the 21st one time. I was bopping to that when he came out. Absolutely fantastic stuff altogether. The whole crowd were behind him, even though Derek Lewis is from Houston. And, Tuivasa came in there. And what a fight it was. It was absolutely insane. I'm just looking here at my notes and I didn't actually take any notes. Oh no, I did. Hold on. There was loads of clinching in the first round. Yeah, and I almost forgot about that. There was such madness here. I
think you were happy with Big Tan Dan's separation.
Yeah, it was perfect. I was delighted. I was fucking up clapping and everything. Like, come on, Dan. He separated him after maybe 30 seconds. He was absolutely brilliant. The biggest shots of round one were when Derek Lewis took Tai Tuivasa down and landed maybe 10, maybe a little bit less shots of ground and pound as Tuivasa was on his knees, and he didn't. I didn't think he hurt him per se, but I think in that clinch, Tuivasa throughout every time they kind of broke a little bit, he was landing the better, shorter shots, I thought. But when it got to like long distance and Lewis started throwing that head kick and that switch kick, and then he was like coming in inside, when he did land, and he didn't land very often, I thought he was hurting Tuivasa and landing some good shots. But when it came to the clinch in the second round, and I was looking, I was like, Tuivasa's hurting him here, and they're not even realising it. Tuivasa had him hurt twice, maybe in the 10-15 seconds before he actually kind of hurt him and knocked him out. Lewis was in pain. Lewis was in a bad way before he got knocked out, but then the beautiful elbow came and he finished him off. And this was exactly why I picked Tai Tuivasa. I was the only one in all the Severe MMA picks to pick Tai Tuivasa. Everyone else picked Derek Lewis. And to me, it's the more technical fighter all round that will win in firefights, not firefights, but power fights like that. When the more powerful guy is or when it's a matchup of two powerful guys, I always feel like the one with slightly better technique that will land the shots in a more clean way will win the fight. And those 4 or 5 shots out of the clinch, dirty boxing or dirty elbows or whatever you want to call it, I thought it won Tai Tuivasa the fight, and I thought it was the better fighter won that fight, and that's the way it turned out. What did you think? And finally picking against Derek Lewis.
Yeah, exactly. No, I thought Derek Lewis was going to be the more powerful man, and he'd land. When he landed the kind of shots you talked about, I think he threw about 10, but he probably only landed about 5 or 6, and I think maybe 2 or 3 of them were big shots, in my opinion. And Tai Tuivasa took them really well, and came back and didn't take a backward step. One thing it was a brilliant performance from Tai Tuivasa, but one thing I will mention is there was like a headbutt to the chin in the finishing sequence that was kind of glossed over, which might have been a case of, if the ref had spotted it, it might have been a timeout, which might have saved Derek Lewis there. But I think, it looked like it was only going one way. As you mentioned, I think the commentators kind of overlooked the fact that Derek Lewis was getting stung with a few shots. They didn't really mention them. And yeah, I think, besides the headbutt, it was a perfect performance from Tai Tuivasa. He obviously had some adversity to overcome and did well, but I think Derek Lewis just, I don't know, he looked hurt, as you said, early, and he just couldn't recover, and Tai Tuivasa pulled him away well, but I just thought I'd mention the headbutt to the chin. I don't know if you noticed that.
I didn't see it at all. Was it a headbutt or a clash ahead? Like, did he mean to
Well, it was a head to the chin, which is like probably going to stun you, an illegal strike, even if it was was it
a strike, like, or did they just clash heads?
Well, it was head to chin, so it didn't clash heads, it was head to chin.
Okay, I'll have to go back and look at that. I look at that before the Q&A. So, yeah, actually, get your questions in as well for the Q&A. I'll be doing a Sunday evening because I'm going away on Monday. So, yeah. But, yeah, look, Tuivasa, I think with this, I didn't see that, but I'll go back and watch it. He vaults himself into the conversation here. Beating Derek Lewis means something. And, people calling him for Ganya, which I couldn't think of a worse fight to make right now. Like, why would you make Ganya versus Tuivasa? Ganya's probably going to win that fight. And you just take away a contender that's kind of coming up. I would even nearly just leave him out there. See what's going to happen with that division. Even
it sounds like something the matchmakers these days would do, though.
Oh, absolutely. It was the first thought in my head. Honestly, it was that they're going to make that fight a senseless fight. I look at it be a fun fight and a good fight. It makes sense, I suppose, in terms of the division, or in terms of the rankings. But in terms of the division, it doesn't. It's just they need to avoid that and build this guy up and
you need to keep contenders. Look at middleweight. Exactly. We were just talking about it there. Yeah. Because it's sparse there. Maybe that's a different case, but if you put guys against each other that are potential contenders, then you just lose a contender for at least a few fights. Yeah,
a massive problem for the last few years is the contender that's emerged every time to be the next guy has been Derek Lewis. And now they have a guy who's got over Derek Lewis to emerge, so keep him. Keep him on the back burner. Don't even give him a fight. If you want to do another fight or title fight or whatever, do that and then put in Tai Tuivasa next. A win over Derek Lewis is enough to earn you a title shot. Because of all the disruptions in that division. It doesn't look like Ngannou's going to fight, although he did have a meeting with Dana White, so maybe it's more likely. I don't know what Stipe is doing. I don't know what John Jones is doing, so hold him back, see what happens there. Don't give him a fight yet,
or give him a relatively easy fight like Brad Wharton's boy Andrei Arlovsky, who we'll probably come on to.
We'll come on to him in a second. We must mention the judging though, or we go on to anything else. Oh my God, Robert Alexander one of the worst cards ever in UFC history. It must be. It's definitely up there, given Roxanne Modafferi.
Are you trying to say Roxy didn't win that fight?
No, I'm trying to say that. I absolutely said that. Just no way in hell. Like, I spoke to a few people in the know, know a lot about judging, and every single one of them, I was like, is there something I missed here? Like, because I like to give the benefit of the doubt to the judges, as everyone probably knows at this stage.
She must have got hit in the face hard about 150 times.
Yeah, it was like the most strikes ever in a fighter. There's just no way Casey O'Neill lost any of these rounds. And the other two judges gave it 29-28 to Roxy. That was even
when I heard the first scorecard being read out, I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a 29-28. That's a bit mad. And then I was like, oh, it's what the fuck's going on here?
It was absolutely ridiculous. Like, Robert Alexander.
There's a strange thing with Roxy though. With everybody seems to.
Oh, they love her. Yeah.
I don't know. There's some weird thing going on there. I'm not really sure what that's about.
You hate her, though, aren't you? You're the only one in
I don't hate her. I'm just like, it's kind of like the Tony Ferguson thing. I'm just more realistic about it.
True,
I'm not buying this hype out of nowhere or this over. I don't know, overhyping or over evaluating their skill sets and their performances.
Bisping did a great job, I think, of commentating on the fight, just talking about how Roxy was getting chewed up throughout the whole fight. Like, she got a takedown, I think, in the second round, maybe, but did absolutely nothing with it. Casey O'Neill was just jabbing her up and beating her to a pulp throughout the whole fight. There wasn't a minute of that fight that Roxanne Modafferi won, like. There's no argument whatsoever for any round. I cannot believe 3 judges gave her a round. I cannot believe 1 judge gave her 2 rounds. It was ridiculous.
You can't believe it, though. It's Texas.
It's Texas, yeah. People need to realise as well, like, Texas...
I think you even tweeted out before the
fight
started. There's no problem with the rules. This is just Texas.
The dog doesn't like it. The dog didn't like the Texas judging. But yeah, if people don't know, when they go to Texas, they bring 1 or 2 good judges with them, the UFC. But in Texas, the commission have their own guys who literally only judge when the UFC comes to town. So like this guy, I think he judged like 2 fights ever or something like that. There's some other guys who literally have judged like 4 fight nights ever since like 2004, and they're all UFCs, and that's all they do. And the Texas Commission have like different rules. They're not using the criteria. If you go to Eric McGracken, he has it up there, some of the rules and some of the things they use. I actually got onto Texas before, and I did an article for Severe MMA about the new rules and the changes in the criteria. And Texas basically said, "Oh no, we're not signing up for them at all. We're not using them." So,
we're Texas, we'll do our own thing.
It's literally like having a 1FC fight or something like that, because the rules are completely different. The criteria is completely different. Also, the same judge gave Jared Vandeira a round against Andrei Arlovsky.
You know, he gave him 2 rounds.
He gave him 2 rounds. He gave him the fight. Yeah,
he gave him the fight. 29-28.
It was ridiculous. Like, Arlovsky just bet the shit out of him for the whole fight as well. It was absolutely ridiculous.
The third round was the third round is debatable, but the first 2 rounds were not debatable.
Yeah, but terrible. And it's not like me to come on and say terrible judging, but this was horrific judging. Luckily, you know, even in the main event, we had fucking Doug Crosby and 2 referees judging it. So I know, and they did a good job. They got the right decision, you know, in the end. But yeah, it's not the best. Like I've said it over and over. When you see bad judging like this, you know what good judging looks like. And why aren't the best judges in the world being flown in, whether it's from Vegas, whether it's from fucking Germany or England or Ireland, whatever it might be? If we're having these big championship fights, we need the best judges in the world on them, and they should be. We can't have local guys who are fucking signed up to judge fights and do it once every 2 years.
Or 2 guys who aren't even judges.
Yeah,
in the main event of a pay-per-view. You know, it's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. Well, no, you know, Beltran and they have judge, absolutely, but they're predominantly referees. But yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, we'll be here all day. This podcast is running awful long, so let's run through some of these pretty quickly. Hinata Maikana made a lot easier work of Alexander Hernandez than I expected, to be honest. I thought he'd win, and I picked him to win, but it was, you know, it was a very, 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 very dominant display. After the relatively even first rounds, Hernandez landed a couple of good shots, but Maikana was able to get takedowns. In the second round, just, you know, I came out, got the rear naked choke. He bursted open Hernandez's face as well, and Hernandez kind of wilted away. got the fight to the ground, got the rear naked choke. Moicano looked big and strong into the division. I thought as well, sometimes with Moicano, I said it about 3 or 4 fighters last week, and Bobby Green maybe being one of them, which we'll get to next as well. When these guys show up, they're brilliant, but we don't know if they're always going to show up. And I think Moicano is one of them. But Moicano, sometimes he shows up and it looks like he can't box or jab at all. And then other times he shows up and he looks like he's a brilliant jab. But this time he showed up and I thought his boxing was phenomenal. I thought it had gone up massively. I don't know, did you notice that as well? What did you think of this fight? A very good win for Moicano, wasn't it?
I just think Alexander Hernandez, he got everything he wanted. He was on the pay-per-view. So now looking at his record, he's been finished with punches with Drew Dober. He lost a decision to Thiago Moises. His wins are over Mike Breen and Chris Grutzemacher recently. So I think Moicano's just a way better fighter, and maybe when Moicano steps up again, he'll run into the same problems that you spoke about there. But I think this was just a relatively easy fight for him, a good matchup for him, and he's just a better all-round fighter. Yeah,
and I think the same could probably be said for Bobby Green against Nasrat Haqparast, even though I picked Haqparast coming in. And I thought he actually fought relatively well, to be honest, but Bobby Green was just too
jabbing him up,
but too defensively good on the outside.
Yeah, as I predicted, it would go. There's always that bit of trepidation with Bobby Green, as I say, as you mentioned there, and as I said on the live stream before the fight, you never really can be sure which Bobby Green's going to show up. So I think once Bobby Green had kind of shown in the first round that he was on form, it was only going one way, and that's the way it went.
Indeed, yeah. Andrei Arlovsky fights as well, they only go one way, and that's decision wins for Andrei Arlovsky.
I told you that was the biggest guarantee in the history.
I didn't put it in my betting for some reason. I don't think there was a great price, but basically just an Andrei Arlovsky fight against some lad, and that's the way it was. We won't stick on that too much. Casey O'Neill and Modafferi, okay, we talked about decisions, so we leave that, and I didn't think Casey... And now I did bet on her to win inside the distance and put a big bet on it as well, and she didn't do it. So maybe I'm a little bit mad, and maybe my dreams were crushed. But
does she have power though? I don't know. She
looked like she did before, but this is a worry. Like, as someone who said, Casey O'Neill could be the next big thing, and okay, she's only 9-0, and Roxy is a tough fighter to fight against because she makes it look awkward.
45 fights as well. She is experienced, but
I wasn't impressed by Casey O'Neill here, to be honest. Even though she destroyed her.
Roxy was there to be finished, and okay, Casey O'Neill, she ended up winning a split decision, but we talked about it was a pretty dominant 30-27 win. So, maybe if she had to, she could have upped it and put Roxy away, but was happy just to take the win. But if you want to, maybe it's better for her that she didn't finish Roxy and she can kind of slow build herself up a bit more.
Indeed, yeah. And look, as you said, there might be more things to work on. She'll see things from that fight that she can get better on, but probably need to slow the roll. Talking about maybe she could be the one to beat Shevchenko. I know someone is coming, and maybe she will be, but I wasn't as impressed in this fight as I have been in other ones, to be honest. And maybe that's a function of Roxanne, but it wasn't the best display for Casey. And for Roxanne, she's retiring, been around for a long time, as you said, a veteran, not a legend, I would probably say, but. And a lot of people might disagree with that, but she seemed like a lovely person and seemed like she'd be a good coach and very, very tough and very, very gritty fighter that's been there, and a pioneer, I suppose, is the good way to describe her.
Over the last 5 or 6 years, she has improved a lot
massively,
before, but it's just the game's passed her by, really. She's tough and all that, but I think Casey O'Neill said it. It's not really great when your best attribute is being tough these days.
Yeah, indeed. Kyler Phillips really impressed me. I know our boy Spencer Kite is a big fan of his. They put it down as a triangle armbar, but that was not a fucking triangle armbar. That was an armbar. There was
armbar.
Armbar. Triangle armbar.
It seemed like Kyler Phillips was out there trying to prove that he's a well-rounded martial artist. I think he probably could have. He was going for takedowns when he probably could have put Rojo away on the feet earlier. But he got the finish. He kind of got the time inside the cage. He showed a bit of his game. So all around for Kyler Phillips, a great.
He did get a bit tired though. I thought towards the end of the second, but he looked more alive again in the third. Maybe that's one issue. Like Rojo was there for the taking as well, I thought, as you mentioned from the very start. He was just kind of a punching bag for him. And I think a big thing throughout this card, And it's a topic myself and Harry are going to talk about in Speaker's Corner, but there was a lot of mismatches, I thought, on this card. And it's something we haven't seen down through the years in the UFC. Now, we've criticised the matchmaking, but it's usually like the timing and things like that of the fights. Very, very odd to see mismatches in the UFC, but I think we're seeing them more and more and more. And I think it might be a function of, guys coming into the UFC with, 10, 12 fights, where before they come in with 20 and they'd be exposed. And
should we see guys in there with 3, 4 fights now?
That's
a couple of, like Ulberg on the card here, Jacob Malkoun, coming into the UFC with barely any experience. Yeah, I think there used to be a thing of UFC caliber that we used to talk about, and
it doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. Like this Ronnie Lawrence fight. Okay, he did get knocked down and almost got knocked out, but that to me was a massive mismatch, and it's tough to know how good a fighter is after 10 fights. It's very, very tough unless you're Chris Weidman and you're about to fight Anderson Silva and you've fought Damian Maia and others like that. It's very, very tough for Ulberg or any of these guys, and then to matchmake them that way as well. If you're not, say, someone like an Ian Dean who has been watching them since they're fucking amateur and knows their coaches and knows everything about them. If you're Sean Shelby and you've 60, 100 other lads and Mick Boehner as well to match, it's very, very difficult to know all of these intimately to match them in the right way, and I think that's a big issue for the UFC and could see some very, very bad mismatches down through the years. But we, as I said, we'll talk about that on Speaker's Corner. Ulberg, we kind of touched on that earlier on. He just touched Sharon from the outside throughout the whole fight. Not great. A boring domination from the outside. I have in my notes here. Landed one shot at the end of the first, and that was about it. As I said with Lawrence, he was smashing Martinez in the first and second. He was miles behind, but a massive spinning back fist. And it was a spinning back fist. Usually these are spinning forearms, but this was fist to chin. And then
I was thinking that at the time. Do you think it's actually harder to hit somebody with the forearm? It's like kind of like a small baseball bat in the hand, which is a bunch of kind of small bones. I think it's actually. I was thinking about that. It's strange you brought it up there. I was thinking about that at the time. It's like it probably is more beneficial to hit somebody with a forearm than a back fist.
Yeah, I suppose the fist would be more accurate maybe, but the forearm might be harder. If you get me, like if you hit the fist with the right spot, but the forearm, I suppose, like remember that time Paul O'Connell threw that spinning forearm and just like fucking smash it, like it'd break noses and break jaws and everything like that. So yeah, I would if you catch the right spot, I think the fist is probably better, but overall percentage game, I think the forearm is better. Yeah, but I wouldn't like to be hit with any of them. So there you go. Jacob Malkoun, as you were mentioning there as well, got the unanimous decision over AJ Dobson. Dobson looked good in the first round. He had Mark Coleman in his corner. His takedown defense looked good, but then that gave up on him in the second and third round. And basically that was that. Moroz here, he was ahead, and I was talking about Kazakhstan being the next level of MMA and all. He was smashing Andrade in round one. Really badly cut Andrade, but this is what we watch MMA for, and he came back, and Andrade hurt him badly throughout round two, on the verge of a 10-8, and then he choked him to sleep with a beautiful rear naked choke, and magnificent stuff altogether. Another rear naked choke for Jeremiah Wells as well in the second fight at night against Blood Diamond. The funniest part of this was the start of the fight. I don't know what he was trying to do. It was like the anti-Masvidal. He tried to run around the side of the cage, just like fell into the cage, fell over.
It was like nearly, I thought it was going to be a Jake Ellenberger thing where his foot got stuck in the cage. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? It would be the
first ever TKO win without a strike being landed. I wonder. It was mad. But anyway, he recovered. He got a body lock takedown. He was just absolutely smashing Blood Diamond. As I said last night, the Fince landed more significant strikes than he did, and he got the rear naked.
Defense has been a lot more experienced than Blood Diamond. 3-1 in fairness.
The Fince has been in more fights than anyone in the UFC. Maybe apart from Donald
Don't mess with that fence. You gotta be careful.
Yeah, a lot of experience. And in the first fight of the night, Maxine Grishin defeated William Knight. I actually missed maybe the first few minutes of this, but William Knight came in 12 pounds overweight. Fair play to Grishin. He took the fight. He got 40% of Knight's pay. And then he got his win bonus here as well. So fair fucks to him. In fairness, he got a lot of money out of this. Well, probably like $8,000, but still.
I was going to say, probably not a lot of money.
Congratulations to him. So yeah, that was that card in full, and it was, all in all, as I said at the start, predictable, but some good stuff, and I'll take a few nice finishes, a few arm bars, and a few rear naked chokes, and a big knockout from Tuivasa.
And a few weird incidents like Derek Brunson just falling off a cliff.
Yeah, so overall, I've talked myself into calling it maybe a fun card. Next week then we have UFC and Bellator, and the week after we'll have Bellator Dublin, so we'll have loads of coverage. That, as I said, the two of us will be there, and I'll be up from the Wednesday as well at the media day and everything like that. Next week's UFC, there's some fun stuff on it, even from the bottom of the card. I like David Onama versus Gabriel Benitez, that Mowgli lad. He's always in fun fights. It's a hard one to call.
Yeah, that could go either way.
Yeah. Chaz Skelly is probably going to try to take down Mark Skriegel. Parker Porter, Jacqueline Buckley's on the card against Abdal Razak Al Hassan. Now that's a fun fight.
That should be a fun fight.
That's a brilliant fight. Jim Miller's on the card, always fun. Kyle Dawkins, Jamie Pickett. But obviously the main event of this card was supposed to be Rafael Dos Anjos versus Rafael Fizayev. Fizayev had issues getting a visa, and they're moving him onto the next pay-per-view. That fight onto the next pay-per-view. Even so, the main event will be Ireland's own Johnny Walker against Jamal Hill. And it's lucky they had this fight, because if they didn't have this, you probably would have been talking about Jim Miller in the main event. Maybe, because there isn't really much more on it. So I'm glad to have this fight, and it's a great fight. I predict Jamal Hill will be a champion in the future. I think he's that good. I think he's fantastic. But Johnny Walker's a tough matchup for him. Now,
he's still raw. Yeah, he's still raw.
Go on.
If Johnny Walker's going to fight him, it's probably now is the time. While he's still kind of learning on the job, you obviously have high hopes for him. I'm kind of more of a wait and see with these guys. I've been burnt before, so
been hurt too many times.
Yeah, but it's an important fight for Johnny Walker. He's trying to it looked like he was trying to implement a new style. So we'll see what improvements he's made on that, or if he continues to stick to that style, or if there's a different game plan for Jamal Hill here. I think I go with Jamal Hill here, but I wouldn't be that surprised if Johnny Walker can get it done here. Jamal Hill, I know you've got high hopes for him, but that loss to Paul Craig, there was a bit of an arm injury involved there, but he didn't look great in that fight, and I'd like to see him have a few more fights before taking a step up. But I think this is good matchmaking. Not always, but we criticised the new matchmakers a lot recently. But I think this is a good time to make this matchup, and a good matchup.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's fantastic as well. Like Johnny Walker, he, as you mentioned there, kind of alluded to, since he's moved to SPG Ireland, I think John Kavanagh has tried to change up his game and make him a more cerebral fighter, I suppose. Some people call it more boring, which it definitely is more boring, because you couldn't get much more exciting than what Johnny Walker used to be. But
maybe play the percentages a bit more than just
absolutely, so
throw everything at the wall early.
That's a good thing in many ways, but in other ways as well, I don't know. But we will see. I think it's a very fun matchup. I think Johnny Walker will try to fight a more technical fight like he did in his last fight in this one. And against Jamal Hill, maybe that'll work, and maybe he'll get him a 5-round decision. Now, this is 5 rounds now as well. Up until last week, they were preparing for 3. So that's an interesting cog to this as well. But
who do you think that benefits, if anybody?
It's hard to know, really, isn't it? It probably benefits Walker now, because wasn't his last fight?
He's been there before, yeah.
He won 5 rounds in his last fight, didn't he, if I'm not mistaken? Maybe you can pull that up there so I don't crash my computer. But Jamal Hill has never really been in that position.
It was a decision loss to Thiago Santos.
Yeah, and that was indeed. Yeah, and that was that very close fight. Where I think everyone probably scored it for Santos, but it was relatively close. But that's invaluable to have with your new coach, with a new way of fighting as well. So if he can come out and fight like that for 5 rounds as well, I don't know if he'll win it. I think Jamal Hill will be looking for the finish. He always does look for the finish, but maybe it'll be harder to get. If he can't, I think he could maybe tire towards the mid part of the fight, and maybe Johnny Walker will be able to take over. So it could be one of these ones where Hill wins the first 2, the third is close, and Walker wins the last 2 or something like that. Now it's hard to tell that as well, but we will see. It's one of those ones where you have one fighter who's changing everything in his game over the last couple of fights, and another fighter who's only 10 fights in, who lost a couple of fights ago and who won in like 15 seconds, or maybe a little bit more, in his last fight. So it's a very, very interesting fight. Both guys very, very high quality. I think I'd probably just about pick Jamal Hill because I believe in him an awful lot, but I wouldn't be surprised if Johnny Walker won. So I'm looking forward to that fight. The card altogether, not the best in the world. And then we come to the Bellator card, Bellator 274, and this is this is not a great card. I've already done my my preview of this for Sherdog. Anyone who's, and I actually don't think I mentioned it because I kind of ran past me on that, but Avi Ghazali, he's 6-0, the submission artist. He's fighting Bobby King, so that's actually a good fight on the undercard. Brennan Ward
is back after, I don't know, I haven't seen him in years. I don't know where he's been. Maybe I've just missed his fights.
You know, he retired and he came back. There's actually a great article on, is it MMA Junkie or somewhere like that? My guy Sean Shamrock sent it on to me. If anyone could check that out, he had, like, I think issues with addiction and different things, and he's coming back now. So it's a pity he didn't put him on the Ireland card. I would love to see him Brendan Ward on Ireland. I think he probably would have liked it as well.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea. Obviously, he's been kind of towards the top of the division before, and they're probably trying to slow build him back up here against a 10-10 guy. So yeah, I think hopefully he can. I actually didn't know about the drug issues, but. Yeah, obviously that's a huge thing to overcome, and hopefully he can get back in the straight and narrow and get his career back on track.
Yeah, so it's good to see old Brennan back. What else have we on this card? Not much, to be honest. Saeed Soma and Davion Franklin, like Soma beat Vitaly Minikov in his last fight with that finger injury, so he could be getting a title shot here if he wins this in the heavyweight division. Not a bad fight. Nick Brown is the I think LFA or one of those champions. He's fighting Nalo, who the lads, if anyone listened to the I don't know, maybe we were actually chatting about him afterwards. He's out of Faraz Sahabi's gym, and I know Spencer was talking about him. He's saying he's a good fighter out of Canada as well, so looking forward to that. Karkanian versus Piccolotti, that's probably the fight of the night, possibly here. Piccolotti is a very good wrestler, as is Karkanian, and Karkanian hits hard, and Piccolotti fights and throws a lot of shots. Koreshkov, we all know Koreshkov, he's fighting Chancellor and Contra, who, I watched a few fights on him, not the best fighter in the world, to be honest. He's a good fighter, but I think Koreshkov should have him for dinner. And then we've Neiman Gracie against Logan Storley, which is, look, if you're a grappling fan, if this doesn't turn into 5 rounds, and this is the first ever Bellator 5-round main event non-title fight, so this is an interesting one. And what a fight for it. We have a jiu-jitsu artist against like an NCAA champion wrestler. It could be 5 rounds.
So expect a really bad striking matchup.
If we do that, it'll be an interesting one, because Neiman Gracie's kind of a good jab and fights from lint, but Logan Storley has power and he comes up over the top. Also, Logan Storley is fighting out of Sanford MMA, so it'll be interesting to see his improvements maybe in his striking, and that could be a big thing. He's 12-1. His only loss, I watched that fight, was to Amosov, the champion at the moment, and he arguably won that fight. You know, if you give a card to Storley in that fight, he could be 13-0 and he could be the champion right now, although that wasn't for the belt, but you know what I mean. So it's a very interesting matchup. Both have 13 fights.
He's beaten Joaquin Buckley, he's beaten Ion Pascu. He has some good wins for an early career.
He's unbelievable wrestler, but like, you're wrestling a Gracie to the ground, you're putting yourself into trouble. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure both of these guys will back their ability on the ground. Storley will try to get on top, probably get a bit of a lockdown on the leg, hold him down and stop those submissions, and Gracie will go for arm bars and go-go platas and omoplatas and fucking triangles and the whole lot. So Andrew McGann will enjoy this one, I would argue. So yeah, not the greatest fight in the world, but we have Bellator Dublin coming up next week anyway, or the week after, so it gives a shit. It'll be grand. Be all good. All good. Bibiana Fernandez versus John Lineker was supposed to happen this week, never happened, unfortunately. So that's very unfortunate. PFL's Contender Series, or Challenger Series even, is starting next week. Don't really know any of the lads on it, but there's 7-0, 8-2, 12-3, 7-3. There's some, I'm sure, some good up-and-comers on it. They've also signed a deal. Yeah, we'll end it with this. They've signed a deal with Channel 4, to be honest. And they also said, like, Channel 4 Sport. And that's not a channel, so I don't know whether some of them are going to be on the internet or something like that, or maybe they'll all be on Channel 4 or E4. Yeah, we'll see. And also, Bellator have signed to be on BBC 3 for their fight nights in Ireland and Europe, I would say, and in all the American
BBC Three though isn't available on Sky.
It's back now, I think. I don't know if it's available on Sky for us, but the channel.
I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe not. But the channel went away, and now it came back. So I don't know if it's back yet or not, but that's where they're going to be, which is definitely a step up. But it's very weird. I was talking to someone the other day about it. Bellator waxed lyrical about getting on BBC a few years ago when they got on the website, basically. This is really what they should be waxing lyrical about. Like, they're on TV now on BBC. I know it's BBC Three, it's not 1 or 2, so it's a different, but this is a massive deal, I think, for Bellator. And it's a massive deal for PFL as well to be on Channel 4.
Yeah. Well, people in Ireland have either Virgin or Sky, and and they're going to have BBC Three when it comes back, I assume, so it's huge. It really is.
And Channel 4 as well for PFL. So yeah, it's great. Very good deals for both of them. So yeah. Fair play to them.
And no ads, so that's fantastic.
BBC, yeah, indeed, yeah. So we will have ads on Channel 4, I think, won't we? Yeah, I think so. But yeah, good stuff out of BBC or out of Bellator and PFL to be able to watch them. So yeah, looking forward to that. Fair play to them, and we'll be at Bellator next week. So we said something nice about them for the first time in about a year. Hopefully all the Bellator crew will be lovely to us. But anyway, we leave it there, Graeme. A fun week. Limerick lost again. Man United drew. Liverpool just about to play here in 20 minutes time, so we good timing in the podcast. So not much to report, just usual stuff happening here. Ireland lost to France as well. It's been a tough all week, not a great all week. How have you been, Graeme? Any crack for you before we go? How's life in general?
I enjoyed Man United struggling.
No. Why would you
if you want to talk about my enjoyment of the weekend.
I know, Neil. I would be more than nice to you, and this is the abusive text messages you send me during games. Is there any need for that? And I never replied to you.
They're not abusive, they're just facts.
It's a pure abuse. The pure abuse. I never asked for any of that, like.
So you send me the same shit when Liverpool are playing. Liverpool are playing now in 20 minutes, and I'll be getting this abuse.
I won't be watching. I'll be watching. Actually, I watched the Wayne Rooney.
You always say, I won't be watching, and then you're messaging me, what the fuck, ref, come on.
I usually just see it on Twitter. I'm not even watching those games. I watched the Wayne Rooney documentary yesterday, actually. I thought it was very poor, to be honest. Like,
they pretended like Rooney was like way better than he was, which is a bit weird, and that the hype around him was way bigger, and that he was we're saving English football. Oh my God, the golden boy. Without him, we're nothing. Oh, he's going to win everything. It's like, that was never it. That was just delusional Man United fans.
No, the hype around Rooney was massive. What are you talking about? Okay, you can argue if he met the hype or not, absolutely, but people were saying he was the golden boy. Like, they called him the white Pele and everything like that. That genuinely happened. Like, the hype around Rooney was massive. Look, Rooney went from someone who was massively overrated for years to someone now who's massively underrated, I think. You know, and that's
what is his record? Like less than 1 and 2 as a striker. Come on.
He was playing different. He's the highest ever Man United scorer.
He's playing for Man United, taking penalties and shit. Like, come on.
Will you come on? That's just idiotic. Like, if you want to have a real argument.
And they played that. They were like, oh, what a goal! The one that perfect and all this. The one that shinned in against Man City. It's like, come on, don't rewrite history here.
So you just think Rooney was absolutely useless?
No, I think he was a good player, but maybe he was a great player at times, but he was never world class.
I don't know, because I thought he was such...
People used to be like, oh, Ronaldo, Messi and Rooney.
No, well, that was ridiculous. Absolutely, that was ridiculous. But
that was the kind of tone that the documentary took, in my opinion. They were kind of along those lines. Like, they were making it out like, oh, he was some kind of... We've never seen this before. It's like, we've seen this before.
I think the one thing they did well was say that Rooney, like... he was more of a team player, and it actually like took away from him being a world-class player. I don't think necessarily that was true in terms of took away from him being a selfish player like Messi and Ronaldo. But I do think the fact that him being a team player was something that gets overlooked when we're talking about like the best ever. Because Rooney he'd run his socks off, and he would score great goals and do great things as well. Like
he had times when he was great, but over his career,
definitely.
Another thing, he was knocking out people all over the place.
Yeah, that was bullshit.
It's like, mate, shut up.
You can't argue though that someone who's Man United's English top scorer ever isn't a great player. Though he was definitely a great player.
He was at times, but at times he wasn't.
But at times
he was hyped to be this world class. Like, oh, it's between Messi. And
leave that for a side. We've already discussed that.
That was a huge narrative throughout his career. Like,
I don't think it was, to be honest. I think that's something you picked up on, and it wasn't really.
No, you remember that well. Yeah, Sean. That was a big thing for years.
Not for years, only for a while. But that's exactly why I said he was someone who was massively overrated during that, and then it turned into like, oh, Wayne Rooney's never met his ability. Wayne Rooney was like a starter for Man United in arguably the greatest team in Premier League history when they won like 3 out of 4 Premier Leagues, and when they got to win the Champions League and got to 3 out of 4 Champions League finals. He was a fantastic player now. Like, it's ridiculous. I don't know. People are just so badly kind of... The problem with Wayne Rooney is, right, he got built up massively when he was 16, then he kind of got brought down, and he was built up again, England captain, and then everyone's like, oh, he's never fulfilled his potential. He absolutely fulfilled his potential.
So at times he was great, at times he wasn't. It's kind of like what I was saying. And he was hyped to be better than he was. If he wasn't English, very, very I think it would have, like, if he wasn't English, if he was just a random foreigner from any country, pick any country, I think the hype around it wouldn't have been as much, and the history, or the looking back on it, they wouldn't have looked back so fondly.
I don't think so. I think he was a way more consistent player. Like, okay, his legs went when he was about 32, but before that, from 16 to 32, Wayne Rooney was a fantastic player. Like, people look back at Eden Hazard and say, he was a great player.
We could talk about this forever, and we're never going to agree on anything to do with Man United or the opposite way to do with Liverpool.
No, but it's not a Man United Liverpool thing. This is Wayne Rooney. Like, I was never the biggest fan of Wayne Rooney, even when he was at Man United, to be honest. Especially when he tried to move away.
Was that because of the move? Yeah.
I didn't like that at all, to be honest. And I've never
Once
really
the blue,
liked
always the blue. I remember that.
Yeah, but there was. I just think sometimes we can't adjust to reality because of all the fucking hype and everything like that. And I never bought into any of that hype. Very, very good player who was never Messi or Ronaldo or anything like that, but absolutely like. Yeah. You'd have him
maybe
in a
it's
team.
like the Tony Ferguson thing we talked about earlier, where people hype him up too much, so you kind of have to come in more on the other side to
exactly.
even it up.
And then it's not evened up because it's far right and far left.
It's
mad. It is mad. But anyway, yeah, we leave it at that. And anyway, and the main point, the documentary, they like glossed over all the good parts of his career, like talked about 2 or 3 bad parts, talked about him cheating on his wife, and didn't even really get into the cheating thing, or they didn't. They made
a real big thing out of it, but then they said nothing about it, and it took up like half the documentary.
Yeah, just like, don't watch it. It was a terrible documentary. Like, it was, I don't know. It was odd, but anyway, watched anything. I watched a bit of Pam and Tommy. I watched the first 3 episodes. I don't know whether it's really shit or really good. I can't really tell. But and I started watching.
I've only seen the trailers and it looks terrible. So
Seth Rogen is in it though. I thought at the first it was actually a documentary, but it's not. It's like a TV show. But yeah, be weird.
Yeah, it'd be way more interesting if they just made a documentary.
Yeah, I think it would as well. Yeah, but anyway, my boy Robbie Fox had Tommy Lee on his podcast. I'll probably just go and listen to that. That could be even better. But anyway, look, we leave it at that. The post show was a fun post show this week. Round about Wayne Rooney. Anyway, right, we will leave it at that. Thanks everyone for listening. Graeme, end it with your quote of the week.
I was looking for a job, and then I found a job, and heaven knows I'm miserable now.
Beautiful. We'll see you next Tuesday, or Sunday, or whenever it's on. Good luck. If you would like to support the podcast and get some extra